What's up, everybody? Welcome to another Live with Likely. We got a great guest for you today, Mr. Jeff Moore from Osirs, and that's not the only thing that he does because he was a very high-producing agent at one point with a team in Colorado. We're going to dig into a little bit of his background and how he got to where he is today. We're going to be talking a lot about Follow Up Boss and some very cool things that you can implement inside Follow Up Boss, how Jeff helps his clients right now inside Follow Up Boss and other CRMs. But before we jump into the episode, Mr. Greg McDaniel, the man, the myth, the legend, with the longest running cough of all time. How are you feeling, my friend?
Well, Greg's not on today, but I'm filling in for him. I'm Brad, and
As I already said, I was just on you with your brother. That's why.
You just called me Greg.
I just called you Greg. I was just doing a podcast with Greg. That's funny.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, there you go then. Well, he's a pretty cool guy too. So
yeah, not as handsome.
Exactly.
You know what? Let me just pat myself on the back there.
That's funny.
No, I'm really excited. Jeff and I connected the other week. We've kind of been talking about it, and I think that Jeff has a ton of wisdom when it comes to automation and understanding the real estate business and kind of the needs rather than the wants, kind of, hey, I want a faster horse. No, you want a car, right? And I think Jeff can take people from the faster horse to a car when you're kind of combining AI with automation, especially through Follow Up Boss. So I think this will have a real valuable content in here. And at the end, we'll hopefully get some offers for everybody so they can get a reason for why staying on.
Nice. Yeah. So Jeff, give us a little bit of a background, just a quick couple minutes of your experience with real estate, what got you in the business, and then how it brought you to Osirs and what you're doing now.
Yeah, man. So I appreciate you guys having me. This is a great opportunity. I love what you guys have been building here and the community and everything like that. It's just, it's been a phenomenal insight to it. So, I've got about 15 years experience in the real estate space. And so I started a team here, and at our highest point, we were doing about 130, 140 sides or so. And that was only for maybe a year or two. And then I ended up starting Osirs right around COVID because we all kind of got locked indoors. And I was just building systems for my own teams and stuff. And then I had a friend of mine, she said, man, what you've built, you should just be doing for other people. There's just such a need for it. And so I started investigating it, and I, went for it. I just jumped in, and before I knew it, I got, some really high end clientele pretty quickly, with some of the coaching programs I was a part of. And, before I know it, I'm like, man, I don't want to go fight over washer and dryers. This is where my need is. So I sold a bunch of the assets of my real estate team and have jumped in here, full time. And we've really grown a lot. And I do partner with, teams here locally. So I do my own real estate sales, still locally. But I really use these guys, on a local basis as a, systems team for me to kind of install new things and beta stuff. But yeah, I grew up in Colorado, and I got a background in soccer coaching, and so I just have loved building, systems. And, I kind of look at myself as an architect more than an engineer. But I really live in the spaces where agents and teams do so that we can get sales. I think it always pivots and moves. And so I'm trying to create solutions that just expose where you can, get sales a lot easier, more effectively. And that's kind of why what you guys have been doing has spoke to me, right? Like you're cutting a lot of, guesswork out in a lot of these areas. And that's why I'm excited to talk, because there's so many things we can refine here to help people, get sales, right? Like that's the name of the game.
So, I had to make your screen larger because I had to see, is that a Yeti on a bicycle behind you?
Yeah, dude. So I'm a big mountain biker, and
nice.
Grew up mountain biking. And this my favorite cycle company is Yeti, and so part of being their fan club, they send me one of their flags. So
very cool. So when you say complex systems, so break that down a little bit, because a system can be anything from a direct mail piece to ongoing automation to, like, what are we talking about when you say setting up systems for people?
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's a good question. Like we translate systems to technology.
Okay.
Right? Systems doesn't need to be technology based. It's just in a more efficient way of doing things, right? Like you have a system in the morning of what you do because of the way you wake up and the way you do things. We're systemized by nature. And complex systems are really about the what, and then letting it do the consistent workflow. So a lot of times I sit down and I go, okay, instead of playing shiny object syndrome with, hey, this looks cool, this looks sweet, sexy, whatever. Tell me what you want. What's the end goal here? What's your vision? What's your outlook? And then let's reverse engineer it into the right tech and the right things. And we kind of build it from that way. So the systems kind of get built from that point forward. And every team's different. Every organization's different. Every agent's different. There's financial thresholds. There's technology thresholds, scalability, all these different things. I've been glued to a couple of systems for quite some time now, and Follow Up Boss is one of those as the CRM, right? Like they have got a great, backbone to the system. They've got a great API, which for those that don't know that, this is what's created a company's around helping clientele with Follow Up Boss, like yours and mine, right? Without that great API, we wouldn't be innovating for them.
Absolutely.
So that vision is an amazing foresight, and a big reason why you're seeing all this stuff come to light now. So,
and I mean, automation really is the key, right? The more like connected we are, the more tasks we have, and then before you know it, we're not talking to clients anymore, right?
Right.
And so, like, can give us an example of some of the automations or systems, if you would.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. So like it's interesting because I could say, oh, this is the coolest thing we've built or the sexiest thing and all that. But so we have to be grounded and go, okay, it's all about the consumer behavior, and more specifically, buyer consumer behavior, because everything pivots based on that behavior, right? Think about mailers for an instant. A long time ago, 90s even, like actual mail worked, right? Then all of a sudden, everybody picked up on it. They got a bunch of spam. Now mail didn't work. So we went to email, and then we went to text message. And now guess what? Mailers are kind of back, right? So it's all about behavior. And the phone is another example there where, hey, mass dialing and just ringing through thousands of people. Well, that used to work. When I first got in, I would just hammer for sale by owners, expires, and all that. And then all of a sudden, spam became a big deal, and then now it's texting, right? And so if you come from it from this perspective of the buyer and the consumer's behavior and adjust things from there, you can build your systems that way, right? So automations and your workflows are all based on that, right? I feel like as team leaders, we want to expect 10 dials within the first 5 days and just hammer, hammer, hammer. Well, on a Facebook lead, you don't really need to do that. Right? Like that's a soft lead. You need to probably be text heavy versus call heavy. So base your automations off of that. Right? That makes sense?
Knowing how people want to have communication. I think that's a very interesting, you have a marketing cap on, right? I would call that a marketing cap, because for me, I've had so many conversations with people when you explain something that simple of, well, how would you like to be contacted? Because we always go immediately to like, what's the best thing I could possibly do, instead of think internally like, well, how would I want to communicate with somebody? What would my preference be? And then build my systems around literally my personal preference as a consumer. Because your personal preference as a consumer is to hit ignore on every spam call that you get that's not somebody from your phone book. And yet we're still pounding the phones, right?
Yeah, it's so interesting because like if we can literally sit down for a minute, take a breath, which that statement in by itself, how many of you have actually sat down for 45 minutes and had thinking time to these things? It seems like a small ask, but spending some time and writing down like this is how I would want it. Not a lot of us probably do, and I see huge value in doing that.
Don't have time for thinking time. Come on.
Yes, I mean, I wish, right? Like, but it serves us really well. And yeah, like these systems can be based off of that. If you think about
that, like, do you have like a template, or like when you bring on a new client, like, do you have something that you say, hey, fill this out?
No, it's
formulate what they want to do.
Everybody's different. Every location's different, right? So if you're talking luxury to you're talking Midwest to West Coast, it's all very different. So I get a sense of what do you want? What's the end goal here? And like, I have a good question that I ask teams. Define your client. Who is your client? And that's an interesting question. Is your client the real estate buyer or seller? Which one? Is the client you as a team leader, where everybody on your team or your organization leverages you so that you can go off and do more sales and somebody joins your organization to learn from you? Is your agent on your team the client and you build systems and stuff for them so that they get success? There's no wrong answer there, but I think you need to get clarity around who's my client and keep reversing it into my stack, into my systems, instead of just saying that looks cool, that looks cool, that looks cool.
I think that's a pearl of wisdom right there, right? And it makes sense once you say it, right? But I don't think many of us probably thought about it that way. That if you're an individual agent, the client's the buyer or seller. If you're team lead, then you're recruiting and you want to build that team, right? If you're the rainmaker, then it's you, and there's a support staff for you to go out there, right? And conflicting, if you sit down and not sure about that ahead of time, it's kind of like writing an outline, right, for a paper. Once you have a draft, then you can fill in all the details. Otherwise, you kind of go off in all the random directions once you get kind of into the trees, right?
Yeah, and that's trial and error, and that's expensive. The trial and error you're going to spend is probably worth hundreds of thousands of dollars throughout your career, if not more. And just don't do that by there's a good book called, Think with the End in Mind. And if you listen to the Audible, he actually reads it out loud. And it's phenomenal because these guys that actually read their own books out loud are awesome because they always throw in their own snippets.
Yeah.
But he's brilliant. He's absolutely brilliant. And if you can think with your targets and always have that target whenever decisions come up, I need to make a decision. Does that align with what my core is going to be? Then you can fill in the blanks, as you go.
Love that.
Right?
That's really good.
And so what do you see that AI, knowing that you need this persona filled and who the client is, like what areas do you see there being the most potential for enhancements?
Yeah, it's leverage, right? Like think about the dollar per hour the agents should make, right? The dollar per hour for an agent, like they say, what is it? 16 hours the average buyer transaction actually takes from showings to closing. So if you take your commission check and you divide that by many hours, that's actually what you got paid per hour, right? So it's leverage. And if you think about it, let's raise your dollar per hour by leveraging systems to a certain degree, right? At some point you need a human being, and that's up to you to decide. But if you can leverage it through AI and through technology, then when it comes to light for you to pick up, you're getting the top 10% or the top 20% of what you wanted and not spending your time on things that are, routine or, standard and consistent or energy drainers. Like hammering the phone, it kills your energy, kills it, right? So like if you can text 20 to 1 or 50 to 1, you're going to have more energy later in your day when things come up, right? So I think for AI in these systems, it's leverage, but it's intelligent leverage. It's a learning leverage that I don't think people understand. Is we used to have leverage. We always have had leverage, but a leverage in the sense that it's smart and it's adjusting on the fly, and that's rare. That's new, right? Especially in the seller space, right? Because I love the idea, and think about consumers, right? Let's go back to that for a second. How the average person probably knows 5, 6 agents,
Sure.
right? Half them aren't any good. The other half are solid. Top 10% are really good, right? And so if you're trying to get to sellers before they get to Zillow, right? Then what are your tools to do that? Well, you can farm, but now you got to beat out everybody else, right? And again, it's all about that behavior. So I always told my wife, I said, look, give me the list of people that have talked about selling their home and Alexa picked it up on their device at home, right? Because they haven't gone to Zillow, they haven't gone to Realtor.com, they haven't done anything, but I'm trying to pick up on that intention early so it's not competitive, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I love the technology that you guys have been building, because you get ahead of that, and you just got to know where that person's at in their lifespan, their real estate span, to have the right conversation.
Yeah.
Right?
And you help facilitate that. So if you have this pre-market AI, which is what we've built, or you have this Lexus, sneaky notes, right? That you're getting. What do you do once you know they've done that? What's like the number one thing when you start working with someone to automate that, getting in touch with them, being the first? We know that you get an 82% competitive advantage, right? If you're the first person to connect with them. And the buyers, you can do PPC, you can do that. There's search behavior that's different than if you're a seller. Seller, you don't go online, you don't search for homes by zip code because it's your home, right? And what do you do differently to get that conversation started with a seller if you know that they're looking to do something?
Well, I think you gotta understand where they're at, and like you're getting ahead of them before anybody else. So they didn't actually click to sign up for something per se, right? So you need to realize that going in, and your conversation. I think it's the 4 R's or the 5 R's. I forget. Like, are you the right person saying the right thing at the right time in the right way? Right? I don't even know how everyone says that for.
Yeah,
and
that's good. Yeah,
but are you the right person? Like, I'm a real estate professional. Am I the right person to have this conversation with them? Am I saying the right thing for the right time, or should I stop and have that conversation in 3 months? Right. And if you can kind of think about it in that sense, everything will curve from that. So, and your systems will curve from that. Right. So if you get like a high score, you get somebody who is on the AI is kicked out, this is a likely mover, right? Okay, I've got a window of time to try to get them to me before they go somewhere else, right? So I need to it's the compound effect, right? And we talked about this before of whenever I enter a campaign, I always recommend somebody to surround it by land, sea, and air, military, right? If I just do it by land, I'm going to get toast. So I need to surround that campaign with insurance policies to ensure its success, right? And so it's mailers, it's retargeting, it's communication. It sounds like a lot, but it's really just to surround it. And so that's what I would do first is kind of semi-passive aggressive marketing, right? Until they show some additional intention. I'm just trying to get brand awareness until they click. The moment they click, boom, that's my cue. That's my cue. And that tells me I have permission to reach out to them, and I'm likely to get a pickup or get a response on text message. So build your system from that dynamic.
You shouldn't call them and say, "Hey, I got you on this AI list that said they wanted to sell your home. Can I come over and list your house?" That's not a good conversation to have.
Yeah, it's like, what? How do you know that?
How do you know that?
Yeah. So it's interesting, right? Because I think people's BS meters are through the roof.
Yeah,
right,
for sure.
And marketing is only because consumers' BS meters are super high, right? So we got to penetrate that either over time, right, with a relationship and trust, or penetrate it by being the cheapest, transactional. Those are your 2 choices: transactional or relationship. Period.
Yeah.
Right. You could be more aggressive if you're transactional, right? And you could say, "Hey, I understand you probably have 5 people, but can you do that one for 1%?" Great, boom, whatever, right? Or you can try to build it over time. And with the lead, I call this a lead source. This is almost a new lead in a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Right? This is a relationship opportunity because they haven't gone anywhere else yet.
Yeah, I think it's that relationship lead. I mean, especially if we're scoring someone's database and follow-up boss, right? For your use case that you're talking about. We make the assumption that they somehow know them, or they bought them as a lead, or they met them at a soccer game, or somehow they have a connection with them somehow. They've been engaged with them, right? So if they have the permission to engage, now it's, okay, you've got 5-6%, maybe more, that want to move this year, right? Maybe 9% they're not buying, if you're just talking about like renters, right?
Yep.
And then what do you do with the other, call it 95, 94% of your database? How do you stay in the loop? And that was a problem that we saw, and we're like, how do we help people stay engaged, not only with the people that are ready to do something, but also at all those great touch points that can be, I like to call it data-driven marketing. where something changes that, you could go do yourself. Like you could go pull the assessor file from the county records and kind of go do it every single day. But then you don't have any time to sell. You can't be a realtor. Right? You can't be an investor. And so at scale, that was big data, right? And people are all excited about it. And, I think there's a lot of applications that there's never really been an application layer just on big data, right? It's always just like a broker would buy it and great, we have all this like assessor recorder data, now what, or AVM data, now what? And it just ended up falling flat. And so I think, would you agree that there needs to be an application layer on data, like for things that actually have happened or are happening, and then also a kind of an AI layer to it, so that way you can then make sense or reduce the noise from the massive amounts of data that are around homes and people.
It's crazy what is around the data that's available, and I think there needs to be both, because the AI kind of is your aggregator and your live adjuster to give you updates so that it's, you're in the loop, right? Because I'm not a part of the conversations that happen in kitchens about their homes, right? So this is the next nearest thing. It really is that good. Like, that's why I want the list from Alexa. Is like, that makes me a part of the conversation without me having to be there, right? And if I'm thinking intuitively about it, my script, who I am and how I behave, is based on that conversation, and this gives me that in on that. But the data is really important. Like, we have a couple kids, and all of a sudden, when we were pregnant, like this was years ago, we get stuff in the mail with like free baby formula. Did you get that crap?
Yeah.
And it was like, how the hell did you know that?
Yeah.
And they didn't call me. They weren't aggressive, right? But take a page out of that playbook. They're buying big data, and they have potential, baby on the way. Send them this. They sent a lot of money on that, right?
Oh my gosh!
Brand awareness, right? And over time, they're going to train you. And that's the whole point. That's the whole point of the exercise, right? You're not going to get every one of them. So you need to create a system that allows you to take a wide net, right, any time of day, so that you're not held hostage to it. Because if you're a part of that system and you're gone, right, it's going to break. There's a house of cards effect there, right? So you need a wide net to catch everything and filter it down to get to the ones that are worth your time, and put it into a hand-raised event that you can take an immediate action on. That concept can be put into your real estate business anywhere, absolutely anywhere. Take a wide net, filter whatever you're doing down, right, and down the right way to get to the right people, and execute a hand-raised event that you can take an immediate action on, right?
Sounds very simple.
But so that now we have the concept. Let's go figure out the tools that fit within that concept.
Yeah.
And that conversation is what I'm having constantly. And we insert tech based on their answers, based on who they are, and based on what they do and how they want to run it, right? So
what's like the number one thing that you recommend people do to their database? Like when you start working with them, Follow Up Boss, like you see it and you're like, oh, you got to do this first before. Like, what is that first?
It's interesting. I think a clean database, like at least 2 points of contact, right? So I always like the idea of, making sure it's accurate. So how can we make it accurate? We're very lucky in real estate to have, it's a renewable resource, right? Even though some other agent cut that tree down, well, I can replant it and harvest it in another 6 years, 8 years, right? We forget about that. It's a renewable resource. Right?
Renewable resource. Okay. Yeah. So like with real estate, that you can build another home, or you can update the home, or
they can move. Yeah. The average, I don't know what the National Associated Realtors stats are, but I think it's 6 to 8. It's always hovered right around there.
Yeah.
Right. So think about it in that context, and so clean database, make sure it's right data. It's the correct piece, and don't spend a ton of money in doing that, but do it in mass, and then keep it updated, right? Updated, right? And you want to get that I like the AI data before they take action on anything,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
We completely agree with you with quality of data, right, Nick? I mean, that was like one of the biggest things that we saw in our own practitioner, kind of hat on, as well as then we got into the data and AI side. Like take my father, 30 years, 40 years now in the business. His database grew to 10,000 people, right? And they put them in there they meet them at somewhere or wherever, but they never go back and update. Do they still live at 101 Main Street, or is that still the right number, or the email? Why? Because it's a huge pain in the butt.
Right.
And no one really wants to go through that. It's boring. It's awful to do. Right. And it's like, I'd rather just, buy a new lead from Zillow or wherever it is. And we felt so compelled by that, when you look and over 60% don't have addresses, like, wait, we're in real estate, right? Like that's what you would sell. If you don't even know if they own the asset or what asset they have or information about that asset, like, what are you doing?
Well, it's interesting you say that, because like you're thinking about it as a 20,000-foot view perspective of your organization and thinking about tomorrow. Well, and then we also have to remember, single agents and agents who have been in for a long time, they're worried about the next one that pays my bills for the next 6 months.
Right. Yeah.
So I forget about that from time to time, and I go, you need to plant the seeds for tomorrow, though. Because I don't know about you, I plan on being in business for the next 20, 30 years at least. So I can't ignore tomorrow altogether, right? So I always said, work on the now in the morning, and then work on tomorrow in the afternoon, right?
In the morning, tomorrow in the afternoon. I like that.
Yeah, because I got to get the now. I got to get the now in order to pay the bills. But then the afternoon, I need to plant seeds for tomorrow, and that's where making sure things are clean. I'm planting those seeds so I don't have to do this forever, because I hate making cold calls. I hate doing this stuff. If you do a good job on the tomorrow, you'll never have to go back to the now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
That's what we're talking about here.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. And I think that really does align with where we've seen people fall down, right? It works so well, I stopped doing it. Right. And so like you get in that kind of that trough and peak cycle, and before you know it, the database is an afterthought, even though you talk about it the most. Right.
Yep.
And so what do you do to help people stay in touch with their database today?
Yeah. So I tend to make things a bigger conversation than maybe it should be sometimes, right? Because I like to go deep with stuff.
Sure.
But I go, okay, let's create a campaign. If you're going to spend money on anything with your database, right, or in your business, it deserves the time to do it the right way, right? So create a campaign, and I'm an old Keller Williams guy. There's a 36 touch campaign. I feel like there's a 72 campaign. There's all this stuff, right? So there's tools at your disposal, and you need to create that and figure out how to execute it to your database. Doesn't need to be a big deal. You're not looking at a lot, but install that and figure out how to systemize it so where it's off your plate, and now you can think about the now more, and that's covering your tomorrow, right? But again, get to the hand raisers. When somebody in your database, like the worst thing in the world is getting that call or getting that text from somebody, even they reach out to you and say, hey, we've been seeing a ton of properties on Zillow over the last month. And we're like, how can I get to that person 3 months ago or 2 months ago, right? Like good people that are your friends are going to tell you, I've been searching online. And you're like, did I fail?
Yeah.
Did I miss something? That's what we're trying to get ahead of.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, actually, the worst thing is when we originally had the database refresh product and asked people to upload their database to us, and then we showed them how many of their database sold in the last 12 months, and they go, we don't like your database refresh because it actually told us the truth, and we don't like that.
Yeah.
It was like you upload your list and you missed out on like $60,000 in GCI, and you're like, what just happened?
Right. Well, but again, that money can come back around.
Yeah.
6 to 8 years. That's how I curb it into a positive conversation.
Sure.
Because it is hurt. It's painful. It's painful.
But I think sometimes you need a little bit of pain to drive that change, right? To change your behaviors. I don't want to miss that amount anymore. So what do I change? I start working using big data, AI, working with Jeff to automate the systems to take this, massive amount of intelligence now and turn it into commissions, right? And I think that sometimes there's a gap there between, I get why I need to implement AI in my business or need to have more data-driven touch points, but man, I don't know how to connect with Zapier. I don't know how to use an API, and that's like, it kind of stops. I might do some research, but then they're like, okay, I got a listing appointment, I got to go, right?
Yeah, and the implementation is like, hopefully you're thinking about the implementation after you've had these thoughts through here, right? And then again, like, what do you want? So let's go install it together. And this is where I feel like I do offer a lot of value in having that conversation to help you discover the what, and then you've got the ability to leverage it to the how. I'll be your how all day long. I'm going to help you discover the what. And if you want to do the how, then go for it, right? But I'm trying to stay in my lane so that you can as well more often, right? And so, yeah, we are operating in all the major systems and very, very quickly. And I've got stuff that is really inexpensive. It depends on who you are and what you need. Like, I've been on calls where I've opened up my screen and I've showed them how to set up stuff and go here, right? Like, I'm an abundant guy. The more people I help, the more opportunities I'll have, to make a living.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's the things I get excited about is, okay, the data that's coming into the system will get this. I have, let's talk about the data or the likely AI data. I've got AVM, I've got location, I've got all this really rich data that I can pour into my CRM, and I can make really clean, detailed lists, right? So that I can say, I'm on a phone with a brand new buyer lead, right? And they say they're looking in, for me, I'll just talk about Littleton, 80128. Well, give me a second here. I'm going to pull everybody up that's in my database that's not currently on the market in that area. Oh man, it looks like I've got 300 people over there that have expressed some interest in selling. Do you want me to reach out to them for you? That's a value.
Right.
And it took me 5 seconds to find that list.
Yeah.
That's a system.
Yep.
That's the power of what you've got. And I can reach out to those sellers and say, hey, I just had a conversation with Joe, and here's a picture of their family. They're looking to buy. Would love to do an off-market deal. If you're ever interested, let me know.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. That really is. I mean, Nick, where are we going with this? Because I think we're having a lot of good stuff going here, and I don't want to take us off course.
I was going to say, from a marketing perspective, it's funny that you brought that specific analogy up of saying that you have a buyer for a property, and that you also mentioned direct mail making a comeback. That's what we're seeing right now, right? And I think the biggest thing that people have to wrap their head around when they first enter our world at likely.ai is like reverse engineering your thoughts on what a lead is. Because everybody thinks it's just the online lead and you get a lead form and then that's it. Like, we're reverse engineering that and saying we're identifying people who are just ready to go. And so how do you get to those people that are basically bottom of funnel before they even know who you are? And right now, the fastest path to getting in touch with those people has been direct mail with personalized letters that say, I have buyers in my pipeline that are begging for a house just like yours. Can we connect? And a personalized handwritten note. Like, so we get the air, land, and sea. I'm a big Facebook guy. I'm a big social media, vertical video. Like, I'm all about all that. That's great.
Yep.
But that personalized note right now, for whatever reason, is breaking through that wall for these people. And the fact that you just brought that up on 2 different occasions on this call is very interesting, because we're seeing.
Yeah, it's the jab, 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 right hook.
Yeah.
Right. So you're jab, jab, jab. So you tee something up for the later, and then when the right hook comes in, wow, that was effective, and that's the right hook, right? So making that a compelling mailer that gets attention and gets a reply, gets you that hand raise moment.
Yep. That's all.
Right.
And it all starts with knowing who's going to do something before, right?
Yeah.
I think that's what you said. It's kind of back to the pregnancy analogy with Target, like that classic case study where they were having, they started buying a number of lotions or vitamins. Like, that was clear indicators that they were pregnant, rather than buying a gift like that or something for going to a baby shower.
Right.
Wasn't that whole thing because of a lawsuit? Because a father sued Target because it was his daughter that was pregnant and he didn't know about
Oh,
it yet.
that's
He's
right.
like,
I remember that.
why am I getting this mail from your company? I have a teenager in the house. I don't want this in my house. And then turns out
She was actually pregnant. Yeah.
I don't know if there was a lawsuit, but yes, that is
There was
the exact
that was the
story.
genesis of it. Yeah, I don't know if it was.
Yeah, the data providers know more information about his daughter than he did.
Yeah.
And that's all about, like, when you guys go to the store and you enter in your, loyalty card at Safeway or wherever you go, like that's what it is. And that's what Target did.
Well, and we got little devices here that are always on the internet.
Yeah.
And they're always being tracked, and so if there's a power there, and the days of having data protection are long gone. That's already ship has sailed. But to me, it's a value add. Like, I actually would appreciate if some intuitive marketing knows where we're at and can help me make a better decision on what I'm looking at, so I don't have to go shop for the next hour and a half. I hate going to the store. I mean, Instagram ads are like on point. I don't know if you had that experience, but they are on freaking point, right?
I think the people who understand marketing, appreciate that. The people that don't are freaked out by it.
Yeah.
People that are freaked out by like personal data and all, like, if you understand it, then you're like, yeah, I don't want to have to find the top 100 companies to sift through myself. I want to see the top 3 ads and then find out myself, pick from there. So yeah,
but the approach to the consumer has got to be passive, understanding, with this not aggressive approach, right?
Yeah.
And cast a wide enough net where the math shakes out that you do your sales from a percentage, right? Because if you're doing this to 10 people a month, it's going to take you a year, to get a sale, because you're not casting a wide enough net. You got to do it to enough people to where there's an impact there.
Yeah. And, that's something I find interesting in the industry. Everyone says they have 250 contacts, or that's what the NAR stat is. But I think that's what the industry thinks of a contact, right? But if you expand your mind a little bit and start to think, well, where else do I interact with people that maybe aren't captured in my CRM? Your little device, your cell phone, you can export all of your contacts from your iPhone with a free app into an Excel spreadsheet. And it looks like gibberish data, right? I get it. We did that, and I uploaded it into a refresh engine, and I went from having like 2,400 contacts with no, I think I had like 60 or 70 with an address, to where I had ended up with like 1,900 with an address that were uniques, and know I'm tracking them. Did the same thing with Gmail. There's a little trick where you can export anyone you've ever sent or received an email from.
Yep.
And it, again, looks kind of like gibberish. Like, well, is this really a contact or not? Run it through, and because of all the enrichment things that we do, you actually just blew up your database. Right now, you have much higher, quantity of prospects that know you somehow because they're from your phone or your email, right? And now it's, where do I spend my time, because I have a higher quantity. I can't track everybody, right? I can't.
Yeah, and it's probably worth your time to do that activity, right? Even though it was a little painful to try to figure out the how, and man, at some point we get frustrated. But look, like, you can leverage this stuff any one way, Fiverr to people to there's tech, whatever. You can leverage it if you don't want to do it. But if you do it, you're going to find it to be more effective because you're a part of it. So it's probably worth the time to do that. But the other use case here that I really wanted to hit home was, okay, think about inexpensive buyer leads. Usually they're associated with Facebook, right? Because let's bring back up for just a little bit, is that seller lead is disguised as a buyer lead first, right? People don't like to sell. Selling sucks. Buying's fun. So they always look to buy first, and then they think, shoot, I gotta sell now. So selling's a byproduct of buying, right? So give me the secondary markets. Okay, so for us, that's like 700, 900 million range. Like, it's insane here. It's stupid. But I want that buyer that's searching on Facebook. That's a $2 to $6 lead. And I'm gambling the fact they have a house to sell. I'm going to send them back into the system, right? And likely AI to get their address, get their AVMs, get all their stuff. And now I'm going to try to target them before they are inputting their stuff anywhere else.
Yeah.
Right. Inexpensive, highly effective.
Inexpensive, highly effective. I like that. That's
there you go.
Bing. That's a takeaway right there.
Trademark that.
Yeah. Yeah. Seriously, man.
reversing a buyer into a seller. She just did a reverse naked chokehold on a buyer lead, Facebook buyer lead.
Man. It
Are
works.
we going to jujitsu here? And is that
I
what
don't know.
chokehold? Is that like a special technique?
Yeah, that's funny.
Because we could say, turn a buyer into a seller with likely.ai.
Yeah.
Is that a new marketing campaign that I just crack?
I think you guys just started something good there. I mean, and I've always kind of thought of it the other way, but I like the way you said that, Jeff, that people like to buy, right? They don't like to be sold.
It is true. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And selling, if it requires them moving assets or atoms or even get rid of something they have, emotional connections with, right, can be painful. And so,
well, they think about selling last because it's the painful part of it.
Right.
And they always search for homes. And then it's not until something happens where they go, okay, shoot, now I got to sell. Agent call, right? Like, and I know real quick, the one thing I think about is, think about the lifespan of a real estate lead is the moment they think about it to the moment they transact. Well, in the first couple of months, they're passive. They go to Facebook. They didn't go to Facebook to buy a house. They went to Facebook to be on Facebook, and they clicked, and they're mad. They have to put their information in to get the price.
Right.
That's the lead. Know that. Then in between Facebook lead, there's about 6 months, 8-month lull, right? And then it's Zillow. They're intentional. Then they go to a website, a pay-per-click, etc. More expensive, more transactional, right? But that Zillow lead is some other agent's Facebook lead that failed.
Yeah.
Right.
And
in between
lead that failed.
In between that Facebook lead and the Zillow lead, that's referrals.
Yeah.
That's referrals. Right.
Yeah.
Think about that lifespan. It'll help you
that's a good journey.
Put your spot where you need to, put your stuff where you need to go based on that thought.
So this has been a great conversation. And I want to try to tie it back into what you've done with Follow Up Boss and what we're doing with Follow Up Boss to speak to kind of the Follow Up Boss user, right?
Yeah.
Some of the things that we've been trying to solve and we put solutions forward, include obviously our own proprietary AI models, which predict if they're likely sellers or distressed. Then we leverage all the big data we have to inject it so that way automations can be run. And I know you're an expert in the automations and action plans. But what do you see the best use of something like, Chat GPT for an agent being kind of in this flow?
So it's interesting. You kind of tie it back to that because I see likely movers executing a plan of attack automatically, and I pick up the hand raisers, right? Like if you, again, that's the filtering down. So a lot of companies are the one-to-one integrators. They set up from this to this, and then they go, you're going to have to figure out your workflow on how to best use that. Where an example of what I've put together is Likely Movers executes this, 6 to 8 month, 12-month mailing campaign, dumps them into a retargeting campaign, dumps them into a text campaign, and all that funnels back to a notification hub that when they do something, I'm notified, and that's my cue, right? And that's team to team specific. So that's what a lot of what I set up and I help architect, right? And I recommend you do too, because you're going to spin your wheels trying to get to the people who are likely movers and wondering why they're not getting back to you. And it's just a weird deal. Put them on some leverage that's quality, and ChatGPT could be part of that, right? Content, massive. Ads, retargeting ads, those ad campaign, those ad content, you can have an AI draft that, right?
Absolutely.
So you can get that leverage there, and it's in your voice and your perspective, and you just pick up the hand raisers.
I like that. So generating customized, highly customized, non-templated action plans that do all the follow-up work, as well as the initial engagement piece to make them raise their hands.
That's right. And I do that.
Okay.
Then I as a person, it's worth my time to pick up that hand raiser.
Yeah. Once they respond to one of these automated workflows or action plans, whatever system you're in, if they click a link to schedule a call or start looking at properties on your website or saving something, okay, now They went from being a likely seller to taking an action based on my communication, and now you put them into a kind of a high touch campaign.
Yeah, like another example there is like an automatic, CMA producer. We've got CMA automatically will produce based on that, and I can send a text that says, "Hey, I'm not sure where you're at in your process. I want to make sure that you got, an analysis on your property. It's not accurate because I just don't know about your home, but it's a good place to start." The other one I set up with is called the Nosy Neighbor service. Right. So, hey, I'm going to get you set up on seeing what's going on in your neighborhood. This is automatic, by the way.
Yeah.
And I call it the Nosy Neighbor service so that you really know what's going on in your neighborhood without you having to be too nosy. Right. It's an automatic deal when they have a high move score or what have you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think, Nick?
I like that? I like the Nosy Neighbor.
Yeah.
It's catchy, that. Right? It's fun. It's human.
It's human. So it all comes back to that. You can use AI, you can use big data, you can use these as tools, as force multipliers, to go back to your military analogy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything we're doing, everything we've talked about doesn't replace. It replaces the person who doesn't use these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Go forward a year or two from now. And if you're not actually implementing systems that leverage data, that leverage AI, if you just have a system or if you just have one of those components, you really don't have an end-to-end deal funnel, right? That provides all these different workflows. I really think that's powerful. We constantly, guys, implement AI, implement systems, right? If you don't, life's going to be tough in a couple of years. I hate being a negative on that one, but it's the only thing I can think to say, please do something.
Well, but the other side of it too is everybody's already using systems. You just don't know it or have identified it yet, right? So you're not totally lost. You just haven't necessarily identified the fact that you're using a system. I guarantee you that when you get out of the shower every morning, you dry off the same way every single time with a towel. That's a system, a drying system, right? Have you identified as that? Probably not, but it is. Jeff just helps you uncover and or add fuel to the fire to systems in your business.
Help you discover that, right? And it's your dollar per hour. If you're not employing some of these things, your dollar per hour is low. Like, I only have certain many hours in the day and I can't do everything, and my priorities in life are going to be with my family. And if I'm trying to do all this other little stuff, and then I don't have time, something's going to give. So I might as well leverage it and increase my dollar per hour, right? Like, that's the idea.
I totally agree. Get that 82% competitive advantage by being first to communicate, by taking raw data, your database, and leveraging it with AI and big data in order to get signal from it, right? And then have systems that can turn that signal into appointments.
A hand raise event.
Hand raisers. Yeah. Well, so have you used it within your business? Have you used any other AI before? Like, have you
so we don't have a lot of need for content. A lot of AIs right now are based on content creation. We use systems like Synthesio for video creation. We use chat bots that are a lot more intuitive now. I've got a ChatGPT account, a paid account that we draft a lot of good stuff for. I show people how to use that and then adopt it. I think it's definitely part of the system. But they talk about coders, right? Like the popular coding language of 2023 is English. Right? Like, it's funny, but it's true. It's like, if you can kind of use it as a leveraging tool more than a replacement tool.
Sure.
It's a leverage than a replacement. It's going to enhance and make your time more efficient. That's the best use case.
That's it right there. So, Nick, what else do we have on our agenda? I know we had a couple other things.
We rocked the majority of everything. The only thing that I wanted to ask Jeff about specifically was the embedded app side of Follow Up Boss. So like your experience, because you work with so many people inside Follow Up Boss, what's your experience with like apps that are embedded versus not embedded? And then how do you rectify that? How would you help people is it Zapier as a solution, or do you just try to recommend only embedded apps and Follow Up Boss, or what do you do for people there?
So for me, when we design these systems, it is based on the pilot seat out, not from the aircraft in, right? So from the pilot seat, I want to keep my agents in a simple place to where they have literally 2 screens open and that's it. So I like to maximize their logins to 4 maximum logins.
That
if you go to
seems like
5
a
and
very
6,
tough task.
right? So if we can embed things into their hub, like
Yeah,
Follow Up Boss, then it helps them live in one or 2
One place,
places,
sure.
right? Yep. That's why I'm a fan of the embedded apps, is they've built that framework to really help with keeping things in one place. And now they have other logins, of course, but it's a good start, right?
But you log in once and then it's already there, so you don't have to like remember it and to go do something in another world. It's kind of in your primary.
Yeah, it's in your primary. Like, think about that for a second, right? Like your habits, to apply a new habit, you're like, oh man, I would love to do that, but I never get around to doing it, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, I always forgot about that. But if it was in front of me all the time, then that's going to become something I adopt a lot easier into my habits, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the importance of it.
Then make sure you can automate that habit, right? Like, I guess
Mm-hmm.
for us that that don't want to create new habits, even though we all should,
Right.
or review our habits, automation is kind of where that kicks in, right? Is like, all right, this is a habit I want, so now how do I automate it so I don't forget to do it?
That's right.
And it just works for me, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anything else, guys? I mean, Nick, I'm
No, I appreciate everything that Jeff had to say. I love the simplicity. I think he's just as much of a marketer as he is a systems guy, which from this conversation I could tell. So he's kind of split right between me and Brad, not just visually, but Brad's definitely much more of a systems guy. I'm much more of a marketing guy, which is funny. But Jeff,
I have a marketing degree. I love marketing.
I know.
I got to solve things.
We live on those 2 paradigms for the most part.
We do.
Jeff, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you specifically for Follow Up Boss or anything else that you do, and Osiris, how can they get a hold of you to let you help them navigate these crazy waters?
So Osiris.io is our main website, and of course you can find me there and set up something there. The other thing is just Facebook message me. Like, I check those pretty frequently. It's a good place for me to live. So you can just send me one off, and I'm happy to jump on a call, happy to navigate anything with you there. But I'm a moderator of the Follow Up Boss Facebook group, and so I'm always in there, chirping and helping out anywhere I can. So those are probably the 2 best places.
Nice.
I didn't know that you're a moderator in the Facebook group. So that's huge. That means you really know Follow Up Boss, right? I mean, like,
it's just a great platform, man. It really is. It's just the best API on the CRM side that I've found, and that's what's built this ecosystem of great companies around it.
Yeah.
And a non-bias, I mean, total brutal honesty. Like, do you like the embedded app that we've done? Is there?
Yeah.
Do you see the value in?
100%.
What is it that you like about it the most? I guess I'm to be now almost like self-promoting a little bit.
Because I don't need to think about it. As an agent, it's literally right in front of me to where it becomes part of the conversation, whether I like it or not, right? Whether I think about it or not. It's right there for every individual client, specific to them and their addresses. And that's the beauty of it, is we think about them having these great data points and accurate, home vals and all that. But I got to log into something else to go get it.
Right.
Just give me it right there.
Yeah. Okay. And with the book that you recommended, Think with the End in Mind, I know that that reminds me of like a Stephen Covey, like one of the 7 habits, right? I mean, is there a separate book just on thinking with the end in mind?
That's the name of the book.
Okay, great. I'll go check it out then. I love new books. So
the Audible's fantastic. The Audible's fantastic.
I'm an Audible guy, so that's what it will probably be.
I that's how I retain information a lot easier, and I can speed it up or slow it down or whatever. But I mean, that's a great book to think about for real estate. 20,000 foot view.
Nice.
Okay.
Brad, and if anybody's stuck around this long in this podcast, do we have any specials for Follow Up Boss users specifically?
Yeah, let's. So we will give you 50% off for first 2 months, and we'll put that on top of our 14-day free trial, right? So you usually get one or the other. But if you're listening to this, go sign up for a free 14-day trial. And when that trial is done, just make sure that you're talking with someone on our team and say, hey, we listened to it on the podcast, and we'll also give you that 50% off for the first 2 months. Use it, guys. I mean, nice. Jeff is telling you right now that if you aren't using automations that are triggered by AI and big data in order to optimize your time spent to get your price per hour, right, as high as it possibly can be, someone else will. A lot of people are, thanks to, kind of ChatGPT making it cool all of a sudden for AI, because programming language for 2023 is English, which is a great takeaway from today's call, because I think that's exactly right. It's like, everyone tried to go full geek, and now it's like, how do I just speak geek rather than code geek? So it's a new geek. I think that with the combination of the two skill sets, try us out and then contact Jeff. Make sure that whatever systems you're implementing work, because if our system's doing great, but you don't have the second half of actually scheduling a call, you're probably going to come back to Nick or I or someone on our team going, oh, your system sucks, it doesn't work. Right. And so you have to be able to connect the dots. And we do the best we can to get it from an analog, or maybe it's a digital lead to an analog property, or if you know the property, but you don't know who lives in the property. So kind of either way, but then now you got to take action on that intelligence. So pair these two together, and I promise you will boost your market share. You can adopt into new markets cost effectively, and you'll be able to recruit and retain agents on your team, because you're going to be bringing technology and systems that maybe they can buy the technology independently, but with the systems together with the technology, now you have something that makes it just turnkey for them, and they will stay with you. So it's a win-win-win all the way across the board there. That's my thought.
Yeah, we're doing a special right now. We added a promo for those that sign up, 20% off, or if you enter the Likely AI into the referral code.
Nice.
All of our products are 20% off at the moment. So.
Okay, so cool. Jeff, will you send us a link to wherever that has to happen, and we'll put ours and yours and say, hey guys, here's a package. Go get this thing, get the discounts, take advantage of them, and start putting AI and automation to work for your team today.
Yeah, totally. Yep. Schedule a call. Let's have that conversation, man. Like I said, everybody has great tech, great systems out there. How we get it to work for you is a custom individual answer.
Love it. Awesome. Nick, what about you? No one asked you.
No, I love having conversations like this and meeting guys like Jeff. So I think right now we definitely appreciate everybody who's in the group, who's listening to us, who's followed our journey. We appreciate all the feedback that's in the Follow Up Boss group right now, because we have had some great feedback to help us make the product even better. And I love marketing to this specific artificial intelligence has just changed my whole viewpoint on marketing altogether. Because it used to be just Facebook marketing, who can I get to click, and the lead form and all that stuff. And now it's a totally different attack. And Jeff really gets it, which is awesome. And we're just trying to spread the word a little bit more as to how to leverage artificial intelligence for marketing for your real estate business to make you better, faster, stronger, smarter, all the above, right?
Yep.
So yeah, we definitely appreciate you, Jeff. Hopefully you guys take advantage of Jeff's promotion. If you want Follow Up Boss, take advantage of our promotion. Again, put in feedback, put hashtag replay if you're listening to this we will check these comments later on. And until next time, make sure you utilize artificial intelligence to its fullest, because the train has left the station. It's moving very, very quickly. And we're trying to empower everyone to move as fast as you can with artificial intelligence. So Jeff, appreciate you having on. Greg or Brad, whichever we call you today. Appreciate you being on as well, my friend.
Hey, absolutely, man. And what you just said about artificial intelligence, I think it's interesting that it could be, I think you could call it augmented intelligence. As we take it to where we're going and take away that artificial piece of it, we're just augmenting your systems with intelligence.
Yeah,
so
there you go.
Remember that.
Yep. Nice. Good stuff. Thanks, fellas, man. It was awesome.
Thanks, Jeff. Have a great day.